Hello guys and welcome back. So last time we added these pipes and now we can run around and jump on them. I went ahead and filled this level up with pipes. You should go ahead and do the same, and we will have enemies walking here around these pipes, just like in the original Mario. But in this lecture what I want to do is add some more art assets and then actually create the power-up. So let's go ahead and actually do that. I'm just going to close this window and I'm going to add this bush art asset, import it as a 2D texture. Of course you will have it in the top left to download as a resource. And now we can simply drag and drop it into the scene. It is very small, and you see, because I had the player selected and it added the bush as a child of the player. We don't want that. Let me just drag it out. There we go. I'll select the bush and let's increase the size to something like maybe 4. Alright. And I actually want this bush to be below this ground. So how to do that? We simply have to put it above the ground in the hierarchy, and there we see the bush is now below the ground. Let's duplicate this bush, add some more of them. Alright. We can also flip this one so it kind of looks different. There we go. And I will duplicate these two together and just put them like that. Alright. Let me now add them as a child to the parent bush, so everything is nice and organized. And let's duplicate the parent and put these bushes over here. Alright, there we go. If we now run our game, we can test to see how this looks. Alright, it gives some life to the game. But it will be much better when we add enemies. So let's go ahead and now actually add the power-up. So the power-up is going to be its own scene, because we will want to instantiate it when a few times in the level. What I'm actually going to use for a power-up is going to be this Godot icon here. You get that built in with every project. So let's actually click on the world, let's add a static body 2D world. Here it is. Then let's add a sprite. There we go. And let's of course add a collision shape. Alright, the shape is going to be a rectangle, of course. Let me see where there is our static body 2D. I will call it power up. And let's select the sprite and add the Godot icon as the sprite. But that is too big, so I'm going to scale the icon down. Alright. That should be fine. So move the power up. Let us resize the collision so it looks better. There we go. And what we'll actually have, we will have this instantiate and move to the right, and then when it hits an object it will move backwards. But let's first of course save the branch as a scene. Save it as the power up scene. Hit save. Alright. And now we can of course delete it from this scene. And I'm just now going to go back to the player and preload this power up so that we can use it later, and in the next lecture we will actually continue with programming the power up. So let's add a constant. Power up scene is equal to preload resources, and it's called power up scene.tscn. There we go. Alright, so what I will have, how this will work is some of these bricks will be in a different group. So let's say we will be able to destroy this one, but this one might be in a different group. For example, the power-up group or the brick power-up group. So when I hit him, I will replace this sprite with a different sprite, and then the power-up will appear from above and move towards the right. And if we pick it up, we will set our power to be 1, which will allow us to destroy these bricks, and we will also increase our size a little bit. So that's all we will do all of that in the next lecture. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you then. Goodbye. Hello and welcome back. So last time we added these bushes, and we also made the power-up scene, and in this lecture we are going to actually add a script to the power-up which will move it around, and when the player collides with it, it will increase the power-up or the power level of our player. So let's actually open up our power-up scene by double-clicking it, and here we are in the scene. And last lecture we made this power-up be a static body node, which is very wrong. We should have it be a rigid body. Actually, yeah, but that's not a big deal. I wanted to show you that on purpose, because if we right click, we can simply go ahead and hit change type and change the type of the node here, and basically want it to be a kinematic body just like the player, since it's going to be moving around. Just hit create, and there we go. Now we have a kinematic body here, simple as that. So you don't have to worry about such mistakes. You can always just change the types of your nodes. Alright, so let's go ahead and select this power-up node and attach a script to this node. I will call this script power-up script.gd created. And here we are. Of course, we have the default comments. I'm just going to delete them. And first thing, in the ready function, we gotta set process to be true. And let's now below call the process function. There we go. All right. So how are we actually going to handle the movement of this power up? Well, it's going to be very similar to the player movement. The only difference being that it is not going to be player controlled, and we won't be able, this won't be of course able to jump, it's just going to be moving around. So first up, if we look at the player script, for movement we had speed X, speed Y, velocity, and the directions. Of course we also had jump count and things like that, but for the power up we don't need the jump count, we simply need the speed X, Y, velocity, and a movement direction. So let's go back to our script and define these variables. Let's first go ahead and create the speed X. By default I will set them to be 0, speed Y, velocity, velocity, vector 2, 0, 0, and a movement direction. At this variable I will set it to be 1 by default, which will be moving the power up to the right. But as soon as we hit a collider, a wall or something, we will move it. We will change this to be -1 and then move it to the left. Alright, these are the variables that we will be needing for our movement. If we go back to our player script and look at the constants that we used, we had the maximum speed, and then we had the movement multiplier. Basically, our player, as he walked, he would gain more movement speed up to some point, but we don't want that with the power-up. We want the power-up to have a constant movement speed, so we don't need the movement multiplier, and we also don't need the jump force. So we will need a maximum speed and gravity, and make sure that the gravity for the power-up is the same as for the player, because we want the gravity to be consistent through our game. So let's now go ahead and define these constants. So first of all we want a max speed. I don't know, let's set it to 200. We will see if we want it to be faster or now. And then we need gravity, which I believe is 600. Let me check. 800. 800, okay. Alright. And now we can actually start and write some movement code. Here, for the player, we handle the input. We don't really need that for the power-up because it's going to be moving on its own. And here, if we look here in the player script, speed X, each frame, if we're holding the button, each frame we are moving, and we clamp the speed X variable. The minimum value is 0, and the maximum is maximum speed. We don't need that. So let's simply go here, and in the process function, we can say that speed X is equal to the max speed. Alright, and then we can set that speed Y is plus equal gravity times delta, exactly as we did with the player. And now we want to set the velocity. We want to set our velocity to be equal, velocity X to be equal to speed X times delta. Well, you see, since we are not increasing speed X as we did for the player, we increased it each frame because that's what we wanted. We wanted the player to gain more speed. The power-up doesn't really need the speed increase, so it would be unnecessary to each frame set the speed X to be equal to max speed, whereas we simply can remove the speed X variable here and rename the constant to be speed X. Alright. And then set the velocity X to be equal to speed X times delta. Because it's always going to be moving at the same speed, there's no need to do the same thing that we did with the player. Alright, let's now set our velocity Y. It's going to be equal to speed Y times delta. And also for the velocity X, we need to multiply with our movement direction. Almost forgot that. We need to know in which direction the power-up is actually moving. Pretty much the same with the player character. And now we, of course, have to create a variable for the movement remainder, because if we hit the ground from above, we're going to try to move through the ground because of the gravity, and we need to actually get the movement remainder and slide this on top of the ground. So movement remainder is equal to the move method and velocity. Alright. And now we can check if we are colliding with something. So first of all, the first thing we check when we are colliding, we want to create a normal, and this is going to be equal to get the collision normal, because this normal is going to tell us a lot of things. First up, we want to know if the normal is equal to, let's say, a vector 2 1 0. This means that it's pointing to the right, or normal equal to vector 2 minus 1 0. This is pointing to the left. So if we hit a object which normal is pointing to the left or to the right, we basically just want to change our movement direction. Movement direction times equal minus 1. Basically, if I go back to the world scene, so if imagine that my cursor is the power-up. If it's moving to the right and it hits this wall, the normal is of course pointing to the left. This code is then going to execute, which will set the movement direction, which will multiply the movement direction by minus 1. So it will set it to be minus 1, and then we will be moving towards the left on the x-axis. All right. And finally, after that, we will need to slide the power up. Let's get out of this if statement and create a new variable called final movement. That's just going to be equal to the same thing we did for the player, the normal, and then slide the movement remainder. So normal slide movement remainder. There we go. All right. And these checks here were for the player, for the walls, so we don't need to worry about them. And let's finally just move the power up. So call the move method, move and final movement. There we go. Let us save this now. Go back to the world. And let's add the power up scene into the game. Of course, we need to select the world and then just add our power up. Or let me power up scene. There we go. Open. There it is. If I run our game now, we can see it's moving and it hit the wall, but it didn't change direction, which is very curious. Let's go ahead and try to fix that. So back in our script. So if the normal is equal to 1 or normal vector 2 minus 1 direction times equal minus 1. Let's see, one direction equal to movement direction times minus 1. Let's see if this works. Okay, very curious. We got this weird bug. I'm not sure why it's not flipping around, but we'll fix that in the later video. And so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture where we'll fix this bug and make sure that the player can pick up the power up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Goodbye. Hello guys, and welcome back. So last time we had a bug where our power up would go to the right and just stop at the pipe. Now this is very easy to fix. I spent a few moments figuring out what the problem is, and the problem is very you'll see it's very logical. If we go back to our power up script, the way we handle collision, this if is colliding method it only basically returns one game object, so you can only collide with one object at a time. And since we're in our script always affected by gravity, we're always moving down, even though when we are sliding, we first basically collide with the bricks and then we collide with the pipe. So the game thinks that we are colliding with the bricks and ignores the code for the pipes. We can basically move around this very easily by simply saying if normal. So we want to check if we hit a object from below. So if their normal is pointing upwards, so it's going to be 1. If this is the case, we will set speed y to be equal to 0. And in velocity y, when we multiply speed y by delta, 0 times delta will be of course 0. So that means that we won't be moving downwards, and our power up will be able to bounce off, change direction when it hits the pipe. Alright, what? Excuse me. Just check out. Power up. Speed y equals 0. Sorry, up is minus 1 on the y. That was my mistake. I always get those confused. And there we go. You can see now it bounced off, but it also bounces off of us. because it sees that it hit our normal, and it changes direction. Now you might be thinking, well, we can just simply check for when this collides with the player, and then give the player a power up. But we can't actually do that because we can't. I'm going to show you that. Basically, I'll go to the player script, and I'll check to see if I'll go to the power up, and I'll go to node groups. I'll add this to the group power up. Okay, let's hit add. So now our power up is in the group power up, and let's go back to our player script. And now I'm going to check if the object parent that we're colliding with is in group power up, and if it is, I want to print anything high, just print high. Now this in theory should work, but it's not going to. I'm going to show you that right now. We'll hit this and we get nothing printed. Now why is that? Well, maybe you think that this code doesn't work, but if I change it to bricks, you'll see that I'll get high printed out each frame I hit the bricks. Sorry, it's let me just check to see the correct name of the bricks. Bricks, okay. Bricks, alright. If a bird is you can see when I hit the bricks, I get high printed out. Now, why is that? Well, it's because Godot, because our player and our power-up are both kinematic bodies, and they can't detect collision between each other through the is colliding method. So we'll have to use some other way of detecting if we hit the power-up. Let's just go back to the script and delete this. What we can do and what we will do is let's open up our player characters scene, go to 2D, and a very good way to check for if we hit something is with area 2D node, the area 2D node. It's also a collision object, and you'll see I'll just now create it. And I need to add a child node to area 2D, which is going to be of type collision shape. Basically, now we'll have two colliders, except one is kind of like going to be this area around our player. Okay, maybe like that. And this is going to be used to check if any object is in this area, then we're going to do something. So for example, if the power up is in this area, we're going to increase the power of our player and maybe change its color. But if a enemy is in this area, depends now on its position, we might take damage or we might destroy the enemy. We'll see. Well, now that we have the area 2D, let's actually go ahead and go to our script of the player, and I'll add this code right after we check for the collisions. So maybe here. And basically we now want to create a variable which I will call area, and this is going to be equal to, we need to of course get the node that we just made, the area 2D node, and we want to get the overlapping bodies. So basically any body that is overlapping the area. Each frame we are getting this, of course. And now we need to make a quick check if the area dot size is not equal to 0. So if it's not empty, if there is a object in our area, we want to do a for loop. So for, let's say, bodies in area. So for any body in our area, we're going to run this code. And currently we want to simply check if the bodies, actually let's say for body in area, which will make more sense. So if the body, if the body is in group power up, we want to do something. What we want to do is, of course, increase the power of our player. So plus equals 1. Let me make sure that the power is set to 0. Okay, the power of the player is set to 0. So first up, we increase the power of the player, and then we want to get that object and queue free. So we want to, of course, remove that object, which we reference it now with body. Alright, so let's actually go ahead and test this out now to see if this works. There we go, it works, and I can now destroy these bricks. But if I run the game and I do not pick up the power up, I will not be able to destroy these bricks. So there we go. Alright, now it works. We fixed this. So very important, what we learned this lecture is Godot doesn't, it can't get collision between two kinematic objects. I mean, they can collide with each other, but you cannot get any more information from that. You cannot make them interact with each other, so we need to use the area 2D node, which is very useful. You see now, we will of course use this for enemies as well. We'll simply check if the body is in the group enemies, and if it is, we'll take damage. Maybe we'll kill it, depends. All in due time. Alright, thank you for watching. In the next lecture, we'll actually change our appearance when we pick up the power up, and also we'll make sure that the power up is hidden and that we need to find it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Goodbye. Hello and welcome back. So last time we made sure that the player can pick up the power up, and only when we pick up the power up can we actually destroy these bricks. But we don't want the power up to be already spawned. We want the player to hit one of these bricks, which will then spawn the power up, and then we can pick it up. Just like in Mario. So I'm going to import an asset called box. You will of course have it in the top left corner to download as a resource, and I will import this as a 2D texture. Hit import. Alright, there we go. And I will now just add this box to the scene. Here it is. And of course it's a bit smaller than our bricks, but that's no problem. Let me just see the bricks, the scale of the sprite. Alright, let me now check the box. We just have to scale it up a bit to match the bricks. Alright. We'll need to scale it up a bit more on the Y. So maybe 0.7. There we go. Alright. And we of course need to add a static body 2D to this sprite. And to the static body we need to add the collision shape 2D. The shape of course is going to be a rectangle shape. Let me just rescale it. There we go. Alright. And now I'm going to create I will create this box as a scene, so just save it as maybe power up box scene. Hit save. There we go. And now I will remove it from this scene. Alright. Now I will go to one of these bricks, the first one. There we go. That's the one. And I will change the group of this brick from bricks to power up brick, because we want to be able to hit this brick even though our power is 0. And when we hit it, we will destroy this one and create the previous one at the exact same location, and then we will also spawn our power up. So let's remove the power up from the scene. just delete nodes. There we go. And let's go to our player script. So here where we check to see if the object parent is in group bricks, we can, after that is done, we can check if the object parent, actually let's go ahead and do else if the object parent is in group power up brick. Then we want to do some things. Let me just see if that's exactly how we called power up brick. Yes. So if the object parent is in the group power up brick, what do we want to do? Well, we want to first of all we of course have to preload our scene. So let's say constant, this is going to be the power up brick scene equal to preload resources power up box scene. That's how I called it. Okay, .tscn. Here it is, power up box scene. Be sure that you this name, it has to be exactly equal to the name of the file. Power up brick scene. All right. There we go. So now we want to actually instantiate this as an object. So variable power up brick equals instance. So the power up brick is equal to the power up brick scene instance. So to create it, then we of course want to set the position of the power up brick. Set position. This will be exactly the position of the previous brick that we hit. So we set the position of the power up brick to be equal to the object parent get position, so to the position of the brick that we hit. Alright, now that we change the position, we can now go ahead and actually remove our previous brick because we don't want them both to be on the same position. We kind of replace the previous one with the new one. So let's go ahead and say object parent dot q free. Let me just type this correctly. Q free. There we go. So that removes the brick, and finally we need to add the power up brick to the scene tree. So we have to get the tree. Get tree and get the root of the tree, and finally just simply add the child. The child that we are adding is the power up brick. There we go. Alright, that should now be working. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm running and you can see I cannot hit the other ones, but if I hit this one, it got removed, but it didn't create the second brick for some reason. Let's go ahead and see why that could be. So power up brick, we set the position to I think I know why this is not working correctly. Let's see. Yeah, you see if we select the brick, you see this here. This is actually the position of this brick. So it's the same issue we had with the player. So let's go ahead and actually, to fix this, we will go ahead and create a scene out of this brick. So let's save it as a scene. Brick. Save. And let's now actually open that scene, double click it, and you can see this is the actual position of the brick, and this is only the position where the sprites are. So we are going to restart those positions. Let's go to the inspector, position, set this to be 1 1, go to the sprite, position 1 1, static body, position 1, there we go, and the collision shape position 1, 1, and there we go. Now our brick, now this is fixed. We should be able to get the actual position of the brick now correctly. Now if we save this and go back to our world, you can see that our brick moved up here. But now if I move it downwards, return it to where it belongs, just set it to be there correctly. All right. If I can just, yeah, there we go. And now this brick has its own scene, and of course we need to add it back to the group power up brick. I believe that's how we called it. Let me just double check that. Power up brick, yes. And now I can simply drag the power up, the brick scene, anywhere in the game where we want the power up to appear, and it will be working. Now if I run this, you will see. If I hit the other ones, nothing happens. If I hit this one, we get the box, but the position is still a bit off. Don't worry, we'll fix that. Those are still the problems with how our scene is set up. You can see how big this is, but we'll go ahead and fix that in the next lecture. This one is getting pretty lengthy. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Goodbye.